Did you know that most catastrophic failures that send an engine straight to the machine shop start with a simple and, apparently, harmless gesture under the hood? Many people believe topping up the cooling system is a basic task. But the reality is the cooling system is the most sensitive and misunderstood part of automotive mechanics. A millimeter error on the dipstick or choosing the wrong fluid can start an invisible corrosion process that will devour your engine from inside. If your car has ever shown any sign of overheating or you have the habit of just taking a quick look at the level from time to time, pay very close attention. Let's get straight to the point and understand why what you do today in your radiator can be the reason your car leaves you stranded tomorrow. The first big mistake, and maybe the most treacherous, is treating the cooling system as if it were an open system. Your engine does not drink water. If the level dropped, there is a real problem inside there, and mistake number one of almost every driver is simply topping it off and moving on. Imagine you have a tiny leak in a hidden hose or a micro crack in the radiator. By just topping off the fluid, you are masking the symptom of a disease that is progressive. The cooling system works under pressure. The hotter the engine gets, the more the fluid tries to escape. That leak that today is just a sweat of coolant on the thermostat housing, tomorrow can become a total rupture during a highway overtake. The mistake is not only the act of topping off, but the negligence of not investigating where the fluid went. A healthy engine keeps the level constant for months. If you need to top off every week, or even every month, your engine is asking for help and you are just giving a painkiller to a patient who needs surgery. And when you decide to top off, comes the mistake that generates the most profit for repair shops. Using tap water. I know it seems practical, I know it is free, but what comes out of your faucet is a chemical cocktail your engine hates. Drinking water is treated with chlorine and fluoride, substances that react with aluminum and cast iron of the block, accelerating oxidation. But the worst enemy is minerals, like calcium and magnesium. In the extreme heat environment of the engine, these minerals undergo a calcification process. They stick to the walls of the head passages and the radiator cores, creating a thermal insulating layer. This is bizarre. You have liquid in the system, but the engine overheats because the heat cannot pass from metal to water because of this mineral crust. It is as if your engine were trying to sweat wearing a plastic coat. In addition, this dirt eventually comes loose and forms an abrasive sand that destroys the water pump seal, causing early leaks. Using tap water, even if it is just a little, is introducing a corrosive agent that will cost thousands of dollars in cleaning and parts replacement in the future. But the topping off mistake does not stop at the fluid. It goes through the moment you decide to do it. One of the most dangerous errors, both for the car and for you, is opening the system with the engine hot. There is aggressive physics happening inside. The coolant, under pressure, can reach temperatures well above 100 degrees Celsius without boiling. The moment you turn the cap with the engine hot, the pressure drops instantly and that liquid enters explosive boiling. The steam that comes out can cause third-degree burns in seconds. But for the engine, the problem is thermal shock. Imagine your car's cylinder head, made of aluminum, expanded by intense heat. Suddenly, you pour room temperature liquid. The metal suffers a sudden and violent thermal contraction. This generates internal stresses that result in cracks invisible to the naked eye, but that allow engine compression to pass to the cooling system. That is how many cars begin to burn water or to blow the reservoir, and the owner does not understand why, since he always kept the level full. The mistake was the maintenance timing, not the lack of it. Another critical point is mixing products. The market is flooded with additives of every color: pink, green, blue, yellow. The classic driver mistake is topping off the level using a different color than what is already in the system, believing that coolant is all the same. Colors are not just marketing. They usually identify the chemical base of the product. There are inorganic coolants, which use silicates and phosphates to create a physical protective layer on parts, and there are organic ones, which use organic acids for longer-lasting chemical protection. When you mix these two technologies, an unwanted chemical reaction occurs. The result is the formation of sludge, a kind of mud or jelly that settles at the bottom of the radiator and blocks fluid passage. I have seen cases where this mixture created sludge so thick it jammed the water pump and seized the engine even with the reservoir indicating it was full. If you are not absolutely sure which coolant is in your car, never top it off. The ideal is to do a complete flush of the system and put a new homogeneous mixture. And since we talked about filling the system, there is the overfilling mistake. Many people look at the expansion tank and think that, for safety, they should fill it to the brim, ignoring the maximum mark. This is a serious technical error. The name expansion tank is not by chance. When the engine heats up, the fluid expands and needs a physical space to occupy. That air that stays at the top of the tank works as a pneumatic spring, absorbing pressure variation. If you eliminate this space by filling to the top, system pressure rises to dangerous levels. Something will have to give. Usually the clamps begin to leak, or the head gasket itself suffers unnecessary stress. Excess care, in this case, becomes a direct cause of failure. The level must always be between the minimum and maximum marks, preferably closer to maximum, but never exceeding that line. Often, the mistake is in the part you hold in your hand to close the system. The cap. Very few drivers know the reservoir cap is actually a calibrated pressure valve. It has springs and internal seals designed to open and relieve pressure if it exceeds a safe limit, and also to allow air in when the engine cools, preventing hoses from collapsing by vacuum. The mistake is ignoring the condition of this cap. Over time, the rubber dries out or the spring loses tension. A bad cap lets the fluid evaporate, and you keep topping off the system without understanding where the water is going. Worse is when the valve sticks closed. Pressure rises so much it bursts the radiator or hoses. When topping off the system, always take a look at the cap seal. If you notice cracks or if the spring is stuck, replace it immediately with an original one. It is a cheap part that saves $10,000 engines. There is also the illusion of cheap coolant. The mistake here is penny pinching. You go to the supermarket or a roadside gas station and see a bottle of coolant for an irresistible price. Many times, these products are just colored water with dye and some kind of cheap detergent. Real coolant needs a substance called monoethylene glycol to work. This component prevents the water from boiling early and protects metal parts from cavitation and corrosion. Using low-quality coolant is like putting a placebo in your car. You think it is protected, but the system is rotting inside. The dye in these cheap coolants is usually so strong it stains the entire reservoir, preventing you from seeing the real level or the cleanliness state of the fluid. If the price is too good to be true, run away. Look for brands approved by automakers or that follow ABNT standards. Another fundamental mistake happens right after you top off the fluid, ignoring air bubbles. Whenever you open the system or add a significant amount, air can enter the hoses and head passages. Air is a terrible heat conductor. If an air bubble stays near the temperature sensor, your dashboard may indicate the car is cold while the engine is frying. Or the bubble can prevent the thermostat from opening at the right moment. Many drivers top off the level and already leave for a long trip. The mistake is not bleeding the system correctly. Each car has a procedure. Some need specific screws opened, others require the car to run until the fan turns on twice with the cap open. Without bleeding, you are driving a thermal time bomb. But if you want to know what really causes a silent loss, pay attention to the hose and clamp mistake. Many times the driver focuses so much on the fluid that he forgets to look at what holds it. Rubber hoses have an expiration. The mistake is not squeezing them to feel their texture. If the hose is very soft, slimy, or, on the contrary, excessively rigid and crunchy, it will burst. Old clamps lose clamping force and allow minimal leaks that only occur when the car is at high speed, making them impossible to see in the garage. When topping off the system, do a quick visual inspection. Look for whitish or pinkish stains around the connections. This is the trail left by evaporated coolant, revealing a leak you have not noticed yet. Now we reach the central point, the master mistake that motivated this video, and that is the most dangerous of all because it is an error committed by someone trying to be extremely careful. It is the mistake of using concentrated coolant to top off the system without proper dilution. Many people buy a bottle of concentrated coolant and, seeing the reservoir level low, pour the pure product in there. The driver's logical reasoning is, if coolant protects the engine, putting it pure will protect even more. This thinking is a mechanical disaster. Concentrated coolant is not a ready cooling fluid, it is a chemical input. It is composed, in its majority, of glycol. Glycol has incredible properties to change water freezing and boiling point, but alone it has a heat exchange capacity much lower than demineralized water. What really cools the engine is the water. The coolant only helps it not boil and not freeze, besides preventing corrosion. When you top off with pure coolant, you alter the cooling liquid viscosity. It becomes thicker, heavier. Imagine your water pump trying to push syrup instead of a fluid liquid. It will work with a load much higher than designed, leading to premature wear of the bearing and pump blades. Also, because it is more viscous, the liquid circulates slower through the narrow head passages. The result is the engine starts accumulating heat in critical points. You may have the reservoir full of the best coolant in the world, but your engine will overheat because the liquid cannot flow fast enough to carry heat to the radiator. There is also the issue of chemical aggressiveness. Concentrated coolant has a very high load of detergents and anti-scale agents. In correct dosage, they keep the system clean. In excess, they can start attacking rubber seals, gaskets, and even engine aluminum. This is what we call chemical attack. The ideal balance, in most engines, is 50% coolant and 50% demineralized water. If you top off the level, which often dropped precisely because water evaporated, adding more concentrated coolant, you are creating a mixture dangerously rich in chemicals and poor in cooling capacity. The right way to act is, if you have concentrated coolant, make the dilution in a separate container using demineralized water before putting it in the car. Or, if it is only for a quick level adjustment, always use the ready-to-use type coolant. It already comes in the correct factory proportion and does not risk system viscosity. Never pour concentrate directly into the reservoir to top off level. This is the kind of excessive care that ends up seizing the engine purely for lack of technical knowledge. Keeping a car running for hundreds of thousands of miles requires attention to details most ignore. The cooling system accepts no improvisation. It is a precision system. Using the correct water, coolant in the exact proportion, respecting temperatures and investigating leaks are the only ways to ensure your engine does not become an expensive paperweight. Many times what separates an engine that lasts a lifetime from one that breaks at 60,000 miles is not the car brand, but the quality of what is put inside the radiator and how the owner handles these small level adjustments. If you made it this far, now you have more technical knowledge about cooling than most drivers and even many attendants who try to push wrong products at the station. Stay alert to the signs. The sweet smell of coolant, the color of the fluid in the reservoir, and, especially, never ignore a fluctuation in the temperature gauge. Cooling is silent, but when it fails, the bang in your wallet is huge. I hope these tips help you protect your asset and avoid unnecessary losses. If you have already made any of these mistakes or had overheating problems because of a silly detail, tell it here in the comments. Your story can be the warning another driver needs not to be stuck on the shoulder today. Share this video with that friend of yours who keeps topping off the car water with the garden hose. You may be saving his engine. Thanks for watching. Keep following our content to understand everything about the mechanics nobody tells you, and see you in the next video. Until then, take good care of your machine.